us in one place at one time, and here we are. So welcome to day one of we're going to call this the self-love workshop since it is February. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, so my opinion is that loving yourself is the most important love you can have. So welcome. Exactly. So welcome to the workshop. We are actually at the gym today, so hopefully the sound is decent. If you don't know who we are, I'm Courtney Miracle. This is Miranda Miracle. This is Jen Blanco. We are the leadership team of the Diet Busters. So we're gonna go through today, you guys, 3 days. So a couple things. We're gonna be here for 3 days this same time today, Wednesday and Thursday. And then we're gonna do a bonus event for you guys on Friday, okay? So the bonus event will be, you can join us on a Zoom call and actually ask real, like, you can be a real human with us. It'll be so much more fun.
As opposed to an artificial one.
Well, it's a little more real for us when we can actually see your faces. That's more fun. So hi Phyllis, hi Sue, when you guys jump on, give us a hello, give us a hi. Tell us where you're watching from. But Friday, 12 o'clock noon, we'll have a special Zoom call so that you can get all of your questions answered, and we make sure that this was really amazing for you. So we've got 3 days of this. Day one, today we're gonna go through and just bust the myths, right? We're gonna go through a lot of the common things that people hear that we just know just aren't true, right? So we're gonna bust those myths. We're gonna shed some light on what really needs to go on in your life. Don't mind the guys behind us, they're washing cars. Hopefully you can't hear that. So that's gonna be today. Tomorrow we're gonna dive a little bit into the deeper stuff, and then we'll talk on Wednesday, but we want you guys to stay present, stay focused in the moment.
Yeah, and download that worksheet, right?
Yes, yes. And if you don't have your workbook, see, that's why we're a team, because one of us will always forget something. So if you don't have your workbook, you can go download the workbook. It will come right to you this time. Technology is finally on our side. So go check your spam though. If you download it, I don't know why, it always goes to spam. So go check your spam, but the link is in the group. If you can't find it, let us know and we'll get it to you. But do yourself a favor, commit to all 3 days, right? That's gonna be the biggest piece, is like, don't show up on day one and be like, well, they didn't solve all the world's problems on day one. We're gonna try, you guys, but show up on day 2, show up on day 3. Invest in yourself with time, right? Invest the time to learn some of this stuff, to see why you might be where you are, and then to really understand how do you go from where you are to where you wanna go. Because we promise you guys it is easier than you think. It's simpler than you think. Maybe it's not easier.
Yeah, not always easy, but it is simple.
But it's simpler than you think it might be. So hi Louise, hi Erica. We got a lot of our current amazing shifters on here. So if you guys have questions, drop them in the comment, okay? Also, if you watch the replay, because these will be live, drop us a number 2. And if you have questions, this is where you got to pay attention.
You need to figure out a different saying for that.
Hashtag, really? You're going to talk about that right now? Hashtag question. Hashtag question, and then tag one of us so we make sure that we see it in the comments, and we'll go answer it either today or tomorrow. We want this to be interactive. We want you guys to be here with us. We don't want to just be talking heads. Anything else?
I think that's about it for now. And if y'all didn't know, they're married, so they have some bantering back and forth, but it's amazing. So I think we kind of dive in. What do you think?
That works.
All right. So I know one of the things that I've seen often on the board is regarding calories in, calories out, right? They're all created equal, right, Brandon?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So chocolate cake and protein, chicken breast, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
So can you help us maybe?
Yeah. So I think this is one that gets just massively publicized, right? Like it is that simple, right? Like be in a calorie deficit, and all your problems in your world when it comes to aesthetics or performance or whatever will be completely solved, right? And so, this always brings me back to my study in college. I had a minor in nutrition, and literally for 2 years we did nothing but equate hypothetical and basically mathematic equations for getting people to lose weight. And every single class was, weekly basis, it's 3,500 calories at the end of a week will decrease 1 pound of body fat, right? Like it's science, right? And so in the basis of how a calorie is equated, right? Like, so kind of just bringing full circle on here, right? Like a calorie, all it is a unit of energy, right? Like it's a measure of energy. And when it was first introduced, it was basically using what is called a bomb calorimeter. They heat up a unit of whatever they're doing, and then measuring the water that is surrounding that unit what they light essentially on fire, and then they equate it of how many degrees in temperature wise that the water raised in temperature, and that's how they get the calorie count out of the substance they lit on fire. Well, they don't do that with everything. Now it's based off of essentially estimations of carbs, fats, proteins, and that's how it comes out to be your food of basically the total calories of what you are consuming. Now, I hate to break it to you, but you are not a machine. You are not essentially a laboratory that is as simple as lighting something on fire and then removing of what the essence of that unit of energy is. You are a very complex organism, and literally your digestive system, your metabolism is literally independent to you. It is as individual as your thumbprint or your fingerprints that are on your hand, because of essentially your microbiome, your body fat, all those different elements are going to influence your own individual metabolism, right? And so these are things that don't get discussed oftentimes because really they're not sexy, right? Like it's very hard to tell somebody and sell them a program when it's, oh, here's this unicorn methodology that will, be in this deficit by the end of the week, by the end of the month, and 6 weeks, 42 days, 8 weeks later, and you will be down 52 pounds or whatever, and the remaining of your life, you'll be solved with anything that you want. And not to say that those things can't happen, but ultimately, you guys, I think, and Jen and I were just having this conversation on the side of, I think we all inherently understand that 1,200 calories of chocolate cake is much different than 1,200 calories of solid whole food, of protein and vegetables and fruit and good fat sources and all these other things, right? But we get wrapped up into diet culture and a lot of really good marketing and a really good monetary based type of things of, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you won't have any problems. And from one coaching over the years and the thousands of people we've been blessed to work with over the years, I can tell you that's not wholeheartedly true. Is it a piece of the equation? Yes, but it's not the whole entirety of it. In addition, we're just finishing up our first 8-week shifters group, and what would you say, 100%? 100% across the board, we had to increase the amount of food, right? Like,
it's too much, Brandon. I'm not gonna gain weight.
I know, it's crazy, right?
It's
crazy, right? Like, trust me, we had a lot of the uncertainty of like, hold on, you're telling me to eat more food, but I'm told that I need to lose weight, right? And of course, everyone that wants to come in, and I would imagine that most of you guys that are joining this group obviously want some sort of aesthetic change, right? Or we want some sort of improved performance. We want to feel more confident. You want to feel more sexy. You want to feel more vibrant, whatever that may be for you, right? But 100% of the people that just went through this program were undernourished, right? Like, and so we get so caught up in the calorie counting and the over obsessiveness of it. If I track every single thing that comes within my like stratosphere, but what is that really telling you, right? Because the people that we see, and even if they are calorie rich, they're nutrient poor. And we get so wrapped up if I'm not losing weight, no matter what I do, I'm not losing weight. Well, your body is smart and it's always working for you. And I know that's a hard thing. I'm almost done, I promise. Is the sense that your body is working for you. And if you are undernourishing it and you are basically giving it not enough substance and not enough quantity, let alone quality, it's not going to give you the things in which you want. It's not going to release that extra fat, that extra weight, that extra inflammation, or whatever that may be comprising that equation, because you're not allowing it to have the resources and the building blocks to do what it's designed to do. So it's not about the calories.
There's the scientific part of it, but, and hi Kat, and hi Sherry, and yes, Jen is at Surge, so that's exciting. But I want to tell you guys this, for those of you that don't know our stories, I had full-on eating disorders. I was anorexic, I was bulimic for a very long time. My body did not lose weight, right? I lived days in high school, you guys, I ate 1 tablespoon of peanut butter. I promise you, I was in massive amounts of restriction, and my body did not change, because again, it's smart, and it's you're starving, I'm gonna keep everything that you have, right? So there's definitely the science of it, and that is so important. But for so many of us, you guys, like I've walked down that road. I lived in diet culture. Like I literally starved myself. I threw up for years and years and years. And this isn't a badge of honor, but like I want you guys to understand we know where you're coming from, and that like it's hard to trust that everyone, like society tells me I have to eat less food, and now you're telling me I need to eat more, and that's just not gonna work, because that's not what you've been told, okay?
Right.
But like we know the science, and I've lived it, and the more I eat, the better I feel, and my body changes, right? And your body will work for you, but you have to help it, right? So just for those of you that don't know our backstory, right? Like we own a gym, you know, Jen's had her own amazing health journey, like, but we've lived this, right? On the good and the bad sides of it. So I promise you, calories in, calories out do not matter, right? And so that is the biggest thing. Like Kat says, I'm eating way more, probably 100 times, right? And Kat, I bet you feel better and you feel stronger, right? And that's the other thing we want to talk about. We talk about calories, you guys, is like, we get so caught up in calories, but we're like, most of you are athletes, you're doing some kind of exercise. If you don't see yourself as an athlete, you are, right? If you're going to the gym and you're doing things, you're an athlete. And if you're an athlete and you're trying to like gain progress and strength and do all of those things, you're not gonna do it in a starved state, right? Starvation doesn't work. And calories, like it's a made up number that isn't serving you, right? So if you can, we say this all the time, if you get rid of your scale and stop counting calories, like we've won. Like your life is going to change massively if you can just believe and trust that.
Well, and not going off along with that is there is an emotional piece with this. Literally, your external environment and your internal environment have to communicate, right? Like they're literally portions of your brain that have to communicate and connect your external to your internal, and those will dictate what you absorb and how the things are distributed. Okay, that's one of the biggest pieces we try to help people with is understanding of. There's the old saying of you are what you eat. But more importantly, you are what you absorb and what you distribute, right? Because seen it, right? I'm going to hold back from saying that there's studies out there, even though there are. And if you go on, you know, the internet and do all the other searching and everything else for you, you'll find there's plenty of resources. But everyone always asks me what the specific study was, so I'm not going to go there. But essentially, if your external and your internal environment aren't meshing and we're always in a heightened state, we're always in a lax state, we're always in a sense of anxiousness and anxiety, that will absolutely influence what gets absorbed and what gets distributed within your system. And you can be eating all organic, you may be eating the best foods of all time, you may be in the right calorie measurement, but if your external environment and you are in a heightened state, or you are in a restrictive state, or you are in essentially a overslept state, overstimulated state, whatever that may be, that is going to influence what gets absorbed and what gets what gets distributed, right? So what we're talking about is essentially your hormonal level. So yet again, we're looking at another level deeper, not just your calories.
Right. Now I also wanted to say hi to Marcus all the way from Costa Rica.
That's
Woo!
awesome.
That's pretty awesome. I wish I was in the beach in
kinda
Costa Rica.
jealous.
We're coming to visit, so if we show up on your front door, hopefully you know who we are.
Yeah, and I think some of you probably know my journey, but I was very overweight growing up, and I would say that my knowledge for nutrition was 0 to none. I believed the whole calorie in, calorie out for a long time. And kind of gone through my process. Now, with that being said, and I think some of the shifters also agree that the tools that they're learning in the program, if they would have learned a lot sooner, right? Today's a better day than ever, right? To learn new things. But what I'm saying is it definitely will help your overall just performance and ability to make it happen. So for me, about 2 years ago, I think things started to finally click. And when they did, I was like, whoa, I can run faster. Whoa, I can lift heavier. And I can do all these things. And yeah, I probably eat about 6 small meals a day. That's what works for me. Not saying that's going to work for everybody, but like it's crazy what happens when you actually feed your body right.
Well, there it sounds like that's coming from a place of love and appreciation of wanting to see what you were almost more capable of doing,
right?
As opposed to what we see so often is so many get so wrapped up in the side of not being able to appreciate what we can do, but more on the sense of I got to fit into this box, right? I got to fit into this ideology. I got to fit into this certain thought.
Yeah, and I think that kind of comes down to sort of that next myth, right? Or something that we've seen across the board of just like the fear factor, right? Of like dieting is fear, right? And dieting is lack of trust, and dieting is like praying that if I do this constricted thing, it's gonna shift my life, right? And so what we really like to show people, right, is that like you don't have to be afraid, right? Food is not the enemy, right? It's not, the scale is not the enemy, and like when we get in, like diet culture beats us down, right?
Yes.
You got to be, like Brandon said, you got to be this size in this box, weigh this thing, be able to do X, Y, Z, and the only way to do that is to never enjoy your life, to never have a piece of chocolate cake, to starve yourself all the time, to fast for 25 hours at a time, and right, like it's all a fear-based, it's all fear-based actions. And so what we really want to do is like help you see that like you don't have to live into a life of fear, but you can instead live into abundance and expansion, and you can really shift how you feel. And that's our big thing with like why this is Diet Busters, is because we're really like, we're fed up with the diet industry, and we're fed up with all the bad information, and we're fed up with like there's so many people, and maybe you're one of them, that are trying, right? Like you're like, I've done all the things, I've followed all the things, and nothing works for me, right? And you feel like you're just banging your head against the wall. That's why we're here, because we really want to shed truth and light on what's going on, and give you that hope, and show you the path to walk down the road, so that you don't have to live in that diet, in that fear culture. So that was mine.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think one of the things that you sometimes hear a lot about, it's all stacked against me, right? Like my genes are stacked against me, my environment's stacked against me. Why even try? Like, so can you tell us a little bit about that, Brandon? Like, you know, my genes, like my family has never been the healthiest, right? And my mom's got diabetes, things of that sort, which I refuse to take as my own. But with that, you know, I think a lot of us are kind of stuck in a world where, you know, it's just our circumstances dictate.
Yes, and I think we're all predisposed to certain things, right? Like for some people, they win the genetic lottery and they could do anything they want, and they always look shredded, they're strong, they're fast, they're whatever, right? I will say I've been lucky enough to kind of live that standpoint of, in my mid-20s, of living a lifestyle that I would not say was the healthiest. I was still that person that would have a six-pack.
But just because I had a six-pack didn't mean it was healthy.
I was not healthy.
Okay,
That's
there's
very
a
true.
big difference, and he'll tell you.
Yes, because that is another thing that gets wrapped up of, oh, that person, you know what, they were lean, they were this, how did they have a heart attack? Well, that doesn't mean that just because aesthetically they look a certain way does not mean that they are healthy, right? And what we try to really open the envelope of, and really try to broaden the viewpoint of what health and wellness and longevity and vitality and all the things that we try to long for in as coaches and in our program, is we see all the elements of life, right? Like mental, emotional, physical, you know, your well-being, how you look at yourself, how you look physically and aesthetically, how you relate to yourself, how your relationships are, like all the beacons and all the pillars of life. But there are the sides of your genetic. Yes, you are going to be at certain predisposition things, right? But at the same time of that is we all have, if we took a snapshot of like our genes and certain things that are floating around in our system right now, we all have genes that can turn on or turn off in a moment's notice that will either promote disease or health. Like we all do. That's proven fact. But it's also been proven, especially there's more and more science of nutrigenetics. It's a kind of a newer stream of nutritional medicine, and actually seeing how nutrition can actually literally affect your genes from turning off and turning on. So it's not just on the sense of what you are eating is going to affect your waistline, but it literally is a more of a prevalent science that's showing what you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, all those things are going to literally influence your genome from being turned on or turned off to promoting certain biological functions, right? Like, I mean, there's other studies out there that literally take twins, biological twins, and put them on the same exact calorie diet, same exact everything, but one person has one result and the other person has the other result. These are basically identical, precise people, but yet again, their internal environment via their microbiome, their gut, their body fat, like in case you didn't know, like the different types of fat that you have in your system are also going to promote the amount of calories you burn, right? Like it's not just like all fat isn't created equal, right? Like there's white fat, there's beige fat, there's brown fat, and beige and brown fat actually burn at a higher metabolic rate. So like even those things are going to promote how much you do or do not burn based on a metabolic function, right? So and the cool thing about that is you can actually, there are certain lifestyle aspects where you can turn and promote better functionings of good promoting fat, right? There yet again, it's lifestyle function that equate all of these things, right? Like the thing that we try to help a lot of people with is so often we get caught in life is happening to me, right? But we are big believers in life is happening for us. Courtney's saying is life is happening from me, right? And it's being able to, if you can take and own and empower yourself with that and understand that you may have certain genes that you may have already been pre-exposed to. But that doesn't mean that you can't take certain lifestyle habits and try to turn yourself into better conditioned things that you want to promote, right? Because I think so often we find on the side of, we fall in the side of almost learned helplessness, right? Like, trust me, I have a family tree and I have members in my family and everything else that may be pre-exposed to certain things, but they also give their power away of like, I have high cholesterol, I'm pre-exposed to high cancer rates, I have all these things because of your grandpa and everything before. Yeah. And I'm not gonna say that they may not be true, but if that is true, then why are you still going to McDonald's and eating nothing and drinking nothing but pop all day long and smoking and staying up all night and all hours? You may be pre-exposed, but it's more in fact your lifestyle that's actually promoting and turning these things on tenfold, as opposed to maybe those things might be there, but what are you doing to increase the likelihood of that coming through for you?
I really like to think about when we talk about food of like, and this is something, and Kat will get to your question, but like something that I never understood is like food can be a drug, right? Like you turn to it when you need a change in state, when you're emotional, when you're all of those things. But the bigger piece is like food is medicine. Again, our bodies are really, really smart. So if we give them the right things, our bodies will heal, right? I mean, we talked about this in a couple weeks ago, but it's like our bodies as women, like we make babies. We do nothing, right? We're just like, there's a sperm in there and all of a sudden we created an entire person. Your body can heal, but you have to give it the tools, right? Like if you don't give it the tools to heal and you're not doing the things that, it's not just food, but like sleep and food and all, like if you're doing all of the things and managing your stress and doing all of that, like your body is really, really amazing. And just because it hasn't yet for you, or you don't think it has, it doesn't mean that it can't change, right? Like you have the power to make different decisions and to start to see food differently. And like when that happens, you're gonna start to see your body show up differently.
Absolutely.
Okay, Kat had a question, and it was like, what is a myth that each of us was sure was true? So is there a myth that we all fell into at some point?
I think for me, it was kind of still struggle with it a little bit every day. The scale. So believing that the scale is all-knowing and it has all the information I ever need to make my different choices today than I did yesterday. Y'all, I lost 1.5 pounds in the last day. No, I did not. It's just the fact that there are different circumstances that are affecting my day. I think the other thing I often think about too is the bad foods, right? That's bad. That chocolate chip cake is bad. That pop is bad. That whatever is bad, right? And I think we talk a lot about the fact that like food can show shame, and that's heavy. And so I love the fact that we all think that there's no bad or good foods. It's just stuff that helps us to move us towards our goal, or maybe doesn't really help contribute to our goal. So for me, the scale has been huge. I don't weigh myself as often. I am trying to get rid of it. It's a work in progress, but it does not define you. And I think y'all, even for those people who are going through the transformation challenge, I get it. The thing flinks body fat at us and we all kind of freak out. I have too, but it does not define you.
I would second that, and my big life win is I've weighed myself in almost 4 years now. It's been the best 4 years ever. For me, it would have to be the calorie thing. I mean, you guys, my eating disorder started when I was 16. And it had its ups and downs, but really until we found CrossFit, which was 12 years ago, and I was 36, I don't know, I can't do math. It was a long time, like 20 years. I really did think it was about the calories. It was about how much am I burning? How many times can I, like how many hours can I be on the stupid the Stairmaster? Like I was a triathlete because I enjoyed it, but also because I was like, well, I just ran for 2 hours. Like I could probably eat a little more food now, right? So I definitely fell into the calorie trap, and I am like living proof that now I work out way less, eat way more, and I'm leaner and fitter than I've ever been.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I read often that kind of gets me a bit, is the fact that we work out to eat. Like that is just tough, y'all. Like we work out typically for about an hour, and we're, the other 23, like what do we do with them, right? And the hard part isn't really working out for a lot of us. I think we're type A, again, we're go-getters, etc. It's really the other 23 hours in the day, which again, are not easy, but we can make simple. So we don't work out to eat, right?
You don't have to earn your food.
Right, you don't have to earn your food, and food, it's to fuel ourselves and to, help us achieve our goals, but not necessarily, it's not shame.
I would say for me, this one fell into, especially at kind of like my height as an athlete, was food is just fuel, right? Like your job, all it matters is you need to get enough in the tank, and I guess that would fall back into the calorie portion. Like I wasn't necessarily counting calories, but it was on the side of it doesn't matter. Food is just the thing that provides you energy so you can go do your day or go do whatever it may be. And I think this, will tailor into tomorrow's conversation, but understanding that food means way more than just the energy and the calories and the nutrients it provides, right? Like if it didn't, why would we celebrate a birthday with birthday cake, right? Like why do we meet for coffee? Why do we, hold these celebratory things with food, right? Like why does everyone convene in the kitchen when you go to a party, right? Like food means so many more things to us, right? Like it's our way for certainty in times of famine, right? Like do we have food? Do I have food readily available? Do I have these things? It's our time for variety, right? Like how many of you guys would say the last 2 years, you probably made maybe more unideal food choices than you would have the 2 years prior, because maybe you weren't getting as much stimulus and as much variety, and food is a really easy way to do that, right? Maybe it's your way of feeling significant, right? Like you love cooking, you love baking, you love being with other people. It's your way for connection and love with other people, right? Like we just celebrated Valentine's Day. How many of you guys went out to dinner, right? Like or you got a box of chocolates, whatever that might have been for you, right? Like it's our way for growth and contribution, right? Like it allows us to literally meet all 6 of our human needs. But I didn't know that forever, because it was literally your job is to get food in the system and go do the thing that you were supposed to do, right? And it's like, well, can that be a piece of the puzzle? Yes. But at the same time frame of that is like, that's very narrow-minded, right? Like I didn't understand why my grandma might get upset when she was in town visiting, and I decided not to have her lasagna because I was getting ready for an athletic event. Yes, it was important to me, but she didn't understand that. She looked at me not eating her lasagna as like me not loving her as much, right? And so it's being able to see on the sense of not only just what food means to me, or essentially what I'm trying to get from what I'm putting in my mouth, but also what is it on a mental, emotional, and psychological component of what I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, other than your biology, and that's the other reason why diet culture doesn't work, is because it restricts the hell out of your biology, and you have to overeat to replenish what you don't have. But more importantly is it works against your psychology. And so yes, you may have the utmost plan, but if at the end of the day is really all you want is love and appreciation, because that's a really high thing on your hierarchical needs, you're always going to fall back to that, right? So what really was an eye-opening thing for me was understanding that food isn't just fuel. It has almost infinite different reasons for eating it, and that's different for every single person.
Well, and I think for you guys, one of the questions we ask our clients all the time is, why do you eat? And like,
what do you mean?
Most people are like, what? What do you mean, why do I eat? But I think, like, let yourself sit with that question. Like that would be my homework, is like, let yourself sit with that question. And it's funny because often we get the like kickback of like, it's just for fuel. And I'm like, okay, well that's what you think you're supposed to say. But like, why do you really eat? And what does food bring to your life? Because it gets to still bring all of those things, right? Again, food is not the enemy. I promise you guys, food is not the enemy. So that'd be the homework that I would give.
Well, and usually the response is, it's for fuel and for energy. Okay, then why are you in 1,000 calorie deficit? right? Like why are you undernourished? Why are you so restrictive if it's that energy that what you want, right? And so
I want energy, but I'm
yeah,
not
so
gonna
like
eat.
I want to like the part that how yet again for a lot of you guys you haven't had the ability to interact with us, and we're thankful for you guys for hopping on here. But oftentimes is our philosophy as coaches is there's not a wrong answer, right? And so when we throw out questions and we want you guys to process and sit with those and allow yourself to really see what comes through for you, don't feel like there's a right or a wrong answer. What comes up for you, there's your answer. But it's being able to be honorable to it, being able to be truthful with it, and really like, well, you know what? I eat 1,000 calories because I'm fearful as all get out that food's gonna make me fat. Okay, that gives a different story and a different indication which way to go with this.
Yeah. So I think a couple of people have jumped on. Lynette, thanks for joining us. Phyllis, I also saw Chrissy Milroy, thanks for joining us as well. Up to the top, there was a comment made about carbs are bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're the devil. It's like water boy.
But I kind of need carbs. I like carbs. Don't get rid of my carbs.
That's definitely a myth. Carbs are not
Yes.
evil.
Yeah.
Now, if you just sit and eat sugar all day, maybe that's where
Yes,
I think that's where that comes from.
Well, I think it's on the sense of, if you look at the history, right? Like for those that just joined the group, like when we first started this group, I made a poster board so long ago, it was like 7 weeks ago. That listed basically, I think it was from 1964 to up to like this last year of all the quote unquote fad diets. And literally like it filled an entire whiteboard. And over the course of that time, every diet tries to work against it, right? When we were in the 90s, what was it?
Atkins.
The Atkins, right? So carbs good or bad? Carbs were good during the 90s.
No.
Carbs were bad during the 90s.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who
80s.
knows?
It
Right?
is.
The whole point is they're not bad.
In the 80s, carbs were good. And
Yeah,
then
so, like-
into a little bit into
Yeah,
the 90s.
so if
and
you
then we
look
went
at-
keto.
So if you look at the fluctuation, right, like there always is a quote unquote enemy that gets publicized, right? Because there's got to be an enemy because it allows me to sell you something, right? And so the reason why carbs essentially get quote unquote a bad name is it's no different, us being in the strength conditioning field, oftentimes we hear of like, oh, that's a bad exercise. Well, no, there's not a bad exercise. It's just what is the implementation in which you're doing it with, right? Is this going to be appropriate for what you are trying to get out of it? And it's the same thing when it comes to food, and the same thing when it comes to carbohydrates. If you live in America, we tend to live in the highly processed realm of eating carbohydrates that are all processed foods, right? Like if you look up, yet again, I think I posted this 6 weeks ago, is if you look up the top 20 foods list, they're all processed foods. They're all high sugary. They're all processed. They have a food label. They have all these kind of things on there. And so understanding that carbs, fats, proteins, all those things, you need those metabolically in your system. Like there's hormonal responses, and the reason, like how you act, how you think, what you feel, how you distribute, how you exercise, whether or not you're breathing, is all dependent on your hormones that are getting sent and absorbed and transmitted and communicated with all the time throughout your body. And carbs, fats, proteins all have roles in your body to either take that information, absorb the information, distribute that information. And so when we're talking about carbohydrates, that's the source for energy for your brain and your nervous system. That's also stored in your muscle and your liver as readily available energy for exercise and just daily interaction function, right?
So if you want more energy,
Yes.
carbs can't be the enemy.
No.
That's hard to say.
Okay, yes, but it's on the side of, okay, well, how are we using them, right? I think that's the other question we usually ask is, okay, why and how, right? It's trying to get to the root of the issue, not just throwing stuff on the wall and seeing what's working, right? So, and yet again, seeing where you currently are, because for some people, if you're 300, if you're carrying a really, really high percentage of body fat, a high carbohydrate intake may not be the most conducive for you right now, right? But what types of carbohydrates are you talking about? Are we talking about whole foods? Are we talking about fruits and vegetables? And despite, yet again, what it's throwing out there, fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates. They're not their own subcategory. Like they break down into glucose and glycogen and all the other stuff that gets absorbed and stored in your body. But it's on the sense of we literally need carbohydrates. And the reason why we get, you know, a lot of the questions, the first round that we had was essentially keto. Keto gets a very large amount of publicity nowadays. Well, why? In the essence, right, even that list of diets that I listed, they all can be good and beneficial in some capacity. But usually a lot of the diets that get created were used as health markers, but then they also find that they also attribute to weight loss. And so people find like, oh, I can promote this and make a lot of money off of it. And so when it comes to keto, people see a lot of really, really fast weight loss, but because they're eliminating a lot of carbohydrates. Now, when we're talking about carbohydrates are three parts water. And so if I'm removing that much carbohydrates from my daily intake, I'm really losing a lot of water weight. I'm not losing fat. And so once I start to implement those carbohydrates back in the system, because I don't care, unless you're running around with a group of friends that eat nothing but carnivore and don't eat carbohydrates ever, you're probably going to go out and you're probably going to get back into some carbohydrates back in your system, because that's what we do as Americans. And once you do that, all of a sudden you go back and you put on all your weight, and then you far succeed that, and then all of a sudden you're back living the same old story of this doesn't work for me.
So I have to tell you guys what's happening right now, because we're at the gym and our 6-year-old is over here dragging a box, tying up a rope, and then swinging on it. So if you see our eyes doing that,
it's a test of focus.
So this is real life, right? This is why we do real life. But
yeah. We're pretty real people. What can we say? So I think I saw Tiffany join, Laura joined as well. So thanks for joining us, some shifters. I think, a lot of success we've seen there.
Yeah.
So, and thanks, Kat, for sharing about your dad as well. So one of the things we often hear as well is, I just don't have enough willpower. It's just me, right? I get, I just don't have it, Brandon.
Yeah. So I think Brandon touched on this earlier, but when we talk about willpower, you guys, it's dieting, right? Like dieting puts you in a lack energy, right? Like, what am I losing? I can't do this, I can't do that, right? Like, it puts you in this place where like you're working against yourself, right? So what Brandon said earlier is it works against your physiology and it works against your psychology, right? And so like I lived this for a million years of like, I couldn't go to parties, or I didn't want to go to parties because I couldn't have the thing. And then if I had the thing, then I felt guilty. And then if, then the people were like, well, you need to have this, and like all of these things. And it's like, it's not a willpower game, right? It's a game of like understanding who you are, why you're doing what you're doing. It's understanding that like, again, the 80-20 rule is that when we diet, we're like, I'm gonna do any of these things for this amount of time. Well, what's gonna happen after that? You're like, that was terrible, and now I'm gonna go back this way, right? And so it's understanding that like, it has nothing to do with willpower, right? And for so many people, and I was bulimic, you guys, so I get this. Like, when you don't eat, eventually you get so damn hungry, you just don't care, right? That is not willpower. That is your body literally trying to survive. And then when you do that, you are so hungry that you no longer have any like physiological breaks, right? You don't stop when you're full. You're just like, give me everything. I don't care. Give me all the food. And so it has nothing to do with willpower. And so what we really try to look at is like, again, and Brayden talked about this earlier, is like we have 4 pillars: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And there are so many different things that are happening that it's not self-sabotage and it's not willpower. But for us, and a big part of what we teach inside of Shift is understanding yourself, understanding how food works, understanding your hormones, and understanding that they all work together, right? It's not you do this one thing over here and nothing in your life changes, right? Because it doesn't work like that. Like, how your relationship with your family and their relationship with food, that's gonna matter. Your relationship with dieting, your physical health, like all of that stuff matters. And like, it has nothing to do with willpower, but more to do with trust and fear and energy and all of the things. And so I think that that's a really big piece of people are like, well, I tried and then I quit, and then I tried and then I quit, and then I tried and then I quit, right? That takes us down the trust path. And we've heard that from a lot of our current shifters, right? Of like, I don't trust myself.
Yeah. And I feel like every time we try and, whether it's a unicorn diet or a fad or whatever, it's like we get beat down, and we get beat down, and we get beat down. And at some point, really, we lose that self-love and that trust that we have for each other, for ourselves. which again, that it breaks my heart. I've been there as well. And it takes a lot to kind of start resurfacing back up. But when you do, it's so, there's so much freedom associated with it, right? That's when the wins and things really start to shift. So just know that I believe there's a lot of shame in diet culture. I believe that ultimately it doesn't really work for a long, sustainable diet. And so the reason we came together is because we had a passion for helping people to realize that they don't have to get stuck there. Let's resurface back together, and great things will happen.
Yeah, and I think to us, it's like, I mean, freedom was my biggest piece, but that's what I see for everybody is like, so many people are just like, I'm just stuck, and I want to have a good relationship with food, I want to love my body, and I want to feel free, right? And that is really our end goal. And there's different things that have to happen on that path. But once you are on the other side of that, you guys, like, that's the biggest thing for me is I lived in that constriction for so long, and I don't anymore. And it's like, I know how I feel now and how I used to feel. And that's our biggest passion is how do we help you guys walk that line and see it in a different way, because there's just so much bad information out there. So how do we give you really the truth, right? We're not about BS. We're about like, here's the truth. Here's what you need to know. Sometimes it's going to be doing the deeper stuff. Sometimes it's going to be harder, but the result is incredible.
Yeah, and hi, welcome Andrew and Rona. Thanks for joining us.
Those are all people from my past.
Well,
Oh, cool.
Well, and I think kind of building on that is, ultimately, I think it's understanding because I think looking back, I mean, for so many of us, we live in the rearview mirror. And it's not allowing us to be present and not allowing us to see the path that we're on, right? But it's also being able to reflect and learn from the past. And I know for me is we get so caught up in the how, right? And like that's one of the things we've really been trying to help a lot of the people going through our program right now is understanding that the how will change, right? And like, trust me, there's things that we have put together that work really, really, really well because we've seen it stand the test of time. It coincides with the literature. It coincides with all the scientific studies and all the basis behind it. But it's also on the basis of where you are in the phase in your life is also going to direct and dictate what's going on, right? Because looking back, when I was in my mid-20s and I was working out 4 times a day and didn't have any kids, I just had, to make sure that we had enough money to have a roof over our head. We weren't paying rent. We weren't doing all these kind of things. My life was in a much different place than it is now of having 2 kids, having 3 businesses, having having a lot of different things pulling me in a different direction. But if I had to attach myself to like this one methodology of eating and tracking and dieting and all these kind of things, and not to say that those things can't be tools in your tool bag, but if I had to hold on to the side of like, well, the time in which I was at my fittest and I was the leanest and I was the strongest was when I was 27 and I was doing all these things. Well, if that's not conducive to your life right now, that's really that's so far-fetched and unrealistic for you to try to attach yourself to that how of doing that you're doomed to fail, right? But it's also on the sense of what we've seen so many times is like, well, I've been in restriction and I really miss my family, right? Like I miss my loved one. I miss these kind of things. And it's proven, it's proven if you're feeling sad or lonely or depressed, a really easy way to change your state is have some chocolate, right? Because chemically, that triggers a piece of your brain that mimics a sense of love. Right? Like you can trick yourself into feeling those sensations and releasing those good chemical responses by having chocolate, right? And so that's not only on the essence of on a biological standpoint of whether or not that's a nutrient you're missing, but also on an emotional standpoint if you don't know and understand like what your current state is, what things mean to you, why you're doing certain things, you may shift over and like, you know what, I'm really lonely right now. I'm going to have a piece of chocolate or I'm going to, remember my dad or whoever it may be. And I'm going to go out and the last time I was with him, we were at, Krispy Kreme donut or whatever that may be. And I'm going to have this because I really love and I miss the hell out of him. But then all of a sudden I have that and then I just kick myself in the butt of like, man, I just sabotaged myself. But in reality, I was just really lonely and I was sad and I don't know how to deal with those things.
Right. Guilt shame cycle.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why this is much more than just the diet aspect of this. And yet again, why do other programs don't talk about this? And I'll come from my own side is I wouldn't have known this. Until we walked the line, until we went down this path, until we got curious of like, there's gotta be other ways than just like calories in, calories out, macros this, all this, whatever it may be. Are those a piece of the puzzle? Yes, but they are not the entirety of it.
Well, and like Brandon said, I mean, the why we got here, right? And I don't believe that there's a lot of people out there trying to just take your money and do all the things, right?
No.
But they don't know what they don't know. All of us, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so for us, it was, just so you guys have a backstory, right? Like we own a gym. We walked people through these 6-week challenges years ago, and they got amazing physical results. And then they stopped, right? There's few of you on here. Cal was one. No, Cal was the end of the challenge, but like we have a handful of clients that did that with us. But the rest of them, like the inside didn't change, right? They were this was my thing, you guys. Like I thought this external result was going to give me an internal change, and when it didn't, right? Because that's what happened for a lot of these clients is they got great physical changes and they felt physically really good, but none of the internal stuff changed, and so therefore they were like, that was. I missed all those things, right? I missed all those other needs, and I don't want to diet anymore, so I guess I just don't care, right? And I mean, for me, like I did a 10-month program, you guys, 10 months of like deep dive into this stuff. And when I started, I really thought it was about the food. We didn't talk about food once, right? And so what we want you guys to see is that like our biggest goal is just to broaden, like to expand your thoughts around how and why, and like the definition of insanity is doing what we've always done and hoping for a different result, right? And like, if what I'm doing isn't working, maybe, just maybe, these crazy people that are telling me it's not about the food, maybe they're right? And so that's really our big thing, you guys, is to help you expand how you look at things and understand yourself, right? Because when you can change internally, the external becomes this just amazing place. And then the other crazy thing is you don't care so much about the external when you change the internal, right? So let's do one more. It is 12:46. Let's do one more myth for today. If you guys have questions, drop them now. Heather, hey, thanks for being here. If you guys have questions, drop them now. And if you're watching the replay, drop them in there now too. But let's do one more myth before we cut it for the day.
All right, so there's one diet to rule them all, right? So I'm on keto, I'm on Weight Watchers, it's gonna solve all my problems.
Haven't found the diet yet.
Yeah, so I'll just keep trying them. What was that stat that I found? Like the average person goes through 32 diets in their life and spends about $9,000. Yeah. So
think about it, you guys. How many diets have you been on in your life?
Yeah.
How many times have you
Well,
started
and
and
the
stopped?
part that we always love is like, well, I was on that one and it worked really, really well. Well, if you're not currently still on it, then it didn't work. Our big thing is it sustainable? Does it allow you to have longevity? Right?
It has to be a lifestyle.
Honestly, the best diet in the world is the one that you can be consistent with. And I'm not talking about like, well, I'm consistently eating McDonald's and donuts all day long and drinking.
Diet that serves you, right?
Yes, one that promotes wellness, health, longevity, vitality. That's what we want to promote, right? But at the end of the day, the one that you can be consistent with is the one that's going to allow you to have long-lasting gains, right? And so it's being able to, we're big on the side of helping people understand why, right? Like not why are you doing what you're doing, right? Like if you can understand that, because yet again, we are big believers in, you know all the answers, whether or not you believe them or not, you hold the keys to the kingdom and you hold all the answers. Our job is usually just asking a different question than maybe you haven't been asked before, and then all of a sudden the door's open. You're like, well, I wish I would have known that, right? But you hold all the answers. And when it comes to essentially diets, right, if you look back at time, I can't remember stat on there, but if you look at that for the last, I think it's like 20, 30 years, at any time of the year, if you look at the New York Times best-selling top 10 book list, there's always a diet book within that top 10. Why? Because it sells hope. Because it sells hope, because it sells a new program, because it sells something that's different than the cultural norm, whatever it may be. And when it comes down to it, you guys, what you can do, the easiest unsexy thing when it comes to really nourishment is don't eat too much. Right? Like don't overeat, eat enough to sustain your daily activities, maybe promote some exercise, not overeat that it promotes excess body fat. Make sure you're getting carbs, fats, and proteins that are coming from real food. And what we mean by real food is it came from nature, and then if it was on a shelf, would mold and die essentially in a week, right? And make sure you're getting half your body weight in ounces of water, you're getting plenty of sunlight, you're moving around in some capacity, and you're minimizing your stress and you're getting sleep. Those are not sexy slogans, right? Like, trust me, there's plenty of books and plenty of things on there, but they have to put some really, really awesome marketing to it. But those aren't really, really sexy concepts. But it really is that simple. Like, and if you do that consistently, you don't have to worry about counting and tracking and measuring and being in a caloric deficit and all these kind of things, because you're going to promote longevity and long lifetime health. And those victories are going to stack. But what we get lost in is, oh, they're saying keto is really, really good. That may be. Why? What are you trying to get out of it? What's the ultimate outcome that you want to move towards, right? Or, Atkins or Zone or Paleo or, carnivore or intermittent fasting. Okay, why? Well, because my neighbor did this and they lost, 42 pounds in 12 hours and everything else, and I want that result. Well, is that real? Probably not. Is that sustainable? Nope, not at all. Okay, is that worth your time even going down? Because if it's not sustainable, you're going to be back with the same old story and probably beating yourself up even worse than you are currently.
I want to do one more because it just kind of came to me as you were talking. So I think the other thing that we hear a lot, and maybe you've said this, is I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it, okay? And we had a lot of people tell us that story, and I believed it. I was like, oh, they know what they're doing. They need somebody to hold them accountable, right? And we do that in our program. But what I started to realize is that a lot of the people that thought they knew what they needed to do really don't, right? And so for a lot of times, well, I know what I need to do, I'm just not doing it. Well, I would challenge you to look at that and go, do you really need to know what you're doing? And if you do, then why aren't you doing it, right? But I think that that's the biggest piece of this is that we are huge in education, right? When you understand your body and you understand what's happening inside of your body and you understand your emotions and you understand your children, when you have an understanding, you start to take what I like to call inspired action, right? Dieting is forced action. I have to do this. This is what I should do.
I'm supposed to.
I'm not supposed
look
to.
this way.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's when you have inspired action and you're like, wow, when I eat these balanced meals and I give my body whole foods and I eat more vegetables, I feel really good. And when I feel really good, I'm a better parent and I'm happier and I'm a better wife and I want to go to the gym, right? Inspired action, you guys, when you can come from a place of inspired action, everything changes and you start to do things because you get to.
But Courtney, I just want to lose 30 pounds. I just want to lose 30 pounds.
No, Jen, but why?
Oh.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, that reminds me, because honestly, I had this question a lot, especially, I was the guy that would literally cook bags of broccoli and green beans and bring them to Thanksgiving dinner. That was me. And I would always get the question of well, don't you feel like you're sacrificing? Don't you feel like you're on restriction? Don't you feel like these things? And honestly, at that time in my life, I could say no. Right? I didn't feel like I was sacrificing. And unfortunately, yet again, it's high marketed of you need to be grinding every single day. You need to be sacrificing. You need to be you need to choose the hard route, right? And it's well, I'm not going to say there's not benefits in times in which there might be things that you got to do during your lifetime to have certain things you want. But if it's congruent with the message and the outcome that you want, it really doesn't feel, or necessarily shouldn't feel like you're sacrificing and moving against yourself. But it also has to come from the understanding of your bigger purpose and why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because yet again, I think where the self-sabotage concept comes into that is because you're wanting something that maybe really isn't what you want. Or maybe it is an outcome that you want, but maybe the thought process or the way in which you're going about doing it is maybe working against you, right? Because oftentimes we get so many people that want to come to the gym. Well, I want to lose weight. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that, right? I want to lose 30 pounds. That's amazing. Let's lose 30 pounds together. But at the same time frame of that is, what are you going to get after? What is that 30 pounds of fat loss going to add to your life? What is that going to allow you to experience? Is that going to add more vitality? Is it going to add more self-confidence? Is it going to allow you to do a pull-up? Is it going to allow you to do a push-up? Is it going to allow you to play with your kids? Is it going to allow you to, maybe when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, not have somebody have to worry about picking you up off the toilet, right? Like, as absurd as that sometimes seems, as we get older, those become our reality. And if you are in a place where right now you may be 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, that's the path that we're on. And unfortunately, that's really where it is. And so it's not just necessarily what do you want to lose, but our biggest thing is, what do you want to gain? That's way more inspiring than the fact of, like, I want to lose this. Well, okay. Well, I want to lose this, but all I see is diet restriction, bad workouts, overtraining, undersleeping. I got to grind. I got to do all the things that social media is telling me to do. No, you don't. Nourish your body, get some sleep, play with your kids, come in and feel strong about yourself, and look at yourself and tell yourself you're the baddest human being that's ever walked this face of the earth, and do that time and time again, and you'll feel happy-go-lucky, and you'll get the results you want. I promise it. But we don't get taught that because you can't sell it.
Yeah. So, I missed some of those comments, but it looked like Kat and Sandy were talking about releasing and crying. Yes, you need to let it out, Kat. You are correct. And if you think you need to cry, you do. And we can talk about crying. Jen and I both had a terrible relationship with it that has now shifted. But that's for tomorrow. So that is what we're going to lead into tomorrow. So tomorrow, you guys are going to talk about. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you all for watching. But most importantly, we also got some giveaways. You can call me the swag girl. I love the stuff, all right?
She's the hype girl.
I'm the hype girl. I also will tell you, I can do your hype girl, but I'm going to make sure that, just like Courtney and Brandon, I'm going to ask the tough questions and make sure that you, I keep you to your why, right? Your
apparently Jen's the mafia.
Not the mafia, okay? But I do believe that people are extremely capable and they have so much potential, and it's just about unlocking that. So that's part of our jobs, to help you do that. With that being said, the swag will go, actually we're going to have a keyword. The keyword today is self-love. And if you put that on the bottom of this message as a comment, we will randomly pick one person to get some shift gear. So I just wanted to throw that in there before we got to keep some fun going. This gets pretty deep, and I think it should, but we also want to make sure you incorporate some fun.
And that's the thing, you guys, like, yes, this gets deep, but it's so much fun on the other side of it. And Valerie is the winner. Look at
job. Look at Heather Thomas.
Well done, y'all.
Give us some people to pick from. But we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And we will see you back tomorrow. If you watch the replay, please, please, please share your takeaways, share your questions, all of that kind of stuff. Make sure, mark your calendars, clear your schedule for tomorrow at noon and Thursday at noon, because we've got more of this stuff coming at you. And we appreciate you, and we love you, and I love you guys. And we'll see you tomorrow.
I'd say also, you guys, I'm sure some of you guys have friends in the group. Yes. Tag them, share your nuggets on this, you guys. We are big believers in we are better collectively than we are individually. And we've seen it time and time again. When you have a friend doing these things with you, in a specific friend, you are literally, 95% more likely to actually follow through with the things we're talking about. So tag a friend, grab your significant other, grab your daughter, whatever that may be, have them go through this with you. But especially if you have other people that you know are in this group, tag them in this video, please.
And if they're not in this group and they should be in this group, and you're like, I just watched this video, it was amazing, add them to the group. We'd love to have them. Tag them in the video, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
To be continued.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.